She was more than just a big sister. Yeah, she took care of me like a mother.
Somebody said, "Are you ready?" And I was like, yeah, because I'm not thinking that this is my baby. They pulled the shade, and when they pulled the shade, I looked down and it was my baby. It was her.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm on 90 westbound under 41st Street, and there's a dead body laying on the berm.
There was bruising and scrapes on the body and ligature marks around the neck.
Another tip comes in. She lent her van to an ex. There was blood everywhere.
We were very shocked because nobody knew him, so now how? What happened?
What I'm supposed to say? The truth!
He decided he would show her who's in control.
I try to think about her last moments. That stuff haunts me.
It's just before dawn on April 5th, 2010, in Cleveland, Ohio. Interstate 90 is starting to buzz with morning traffic when a highway worker passing through notices something out of place on the side of the road.
There was an employee with the Department of Transportation who drove by and he actually stopped and backed up. And as he backed up and got a closer view, he did realize that it was the body of what appeared to be a black female.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm on 90 westbound under 41st Street, and there's a dead body laying on the berm.
Right at about 6:30 in the morning, Cleveland police respond to the scene. They close the westbound side of the highway.
As the police arrived shortly thereafter, they did recognize the body as a black female, approximately late 20s, early 30s. They said that the body was in a soft fetal position, as they described it. Also, they did verify that the body was unclothed. They also recognized right away that there was bruising and scrapes on the body and ligature marks around the neck, which indicated that there had been strangulation.
Nothing at the scene gives the police any immediate clues about the identity of the victim. For now, she is classified as a Jane Doe. Her body is taken to the Cuyahoga County Coroner's Office.
There was information put out over the internet and the TV screens about tattoos that she had.
On the west side of Cleveland, Patricia Bradley watches the news with her daughters, Nadia and Edna.
The news was always on in the house. I heard a man say, like, a body was found on the road, on the side of the road. I heard that the body was a female, a lot of tattoos.
The family grows concerned because the description matches their loved one, 26-year-old Angel Bradley Crockett. Angel hasn't answered her phone all day.
I kept her 8-month-old that night, and her 2 oldest children went to the east side with my cousin, and they watched them for her. She was supposed to come back that morning to pick up the baby, like around the afternoon time.
But Angel didn't come back.
When it happened, it was abnormal that she wasn't answering her phone.
She got kids. She would have never been away from her kids, never.
The news reporter then releases additional details of the person found.
She had tattoos everywhere. She had on her leg, the lower back, her legs.
I seen that flash on the news, and I'm like, ain't no way. And I called the coroners. I was describing her. Do she have this tattoo, that tattoo? She had a heart tattoo. And then she had her kids on her ankle, and she had like a big tattoo up her arm, and then she had like a big tattoo on her back. And it was the one on her back, and they was like, you guys need to get down here.
I pray that it, because I believe in God. So I pray that this is not my child.
At the coroner's office, Angel's mother confronts her worst fear.
He took us back there, and they had this little room, and they had this big glass back there. I'll never forget it. Somebody said, "Are you ready?" And I was like, yeah, because I'm not thinking that this is my baby, And they pulled the shade, and when they pulled the shade, I looked down, and when I looked down, I don't remember nothing else. All I remember is they carried me out, and I can remember them putting something up under my nose to wake me up because I really passed out, and they woke me up. But it was my baby. It was her.
Angel Lucretia Bradley was born on August 1st, 1983, in Cleveland, Ohio.
In total, I have 12 beautiful kids. I was 22 when I had Angel, and Angel was my oldest daughter. When I first had Angel, her dad was right there, and he just said, "That's my sugar bone." And ever since then, she was just happy. She wasn't a crybaby. She was a happy kid, and we all called her Sugar Bone.
Angel is the second oldest. I'm the fourth. She was the mother figure out of the clique. So we'll play house. And her definition of playing house is making us clean the house.
She was more than just a big sister. Yeah, she was a big sister, but she was that big sister. So she took care of me, clothed me, everything. She took care of me. Like a mother, like literally.
Angel grew into a beautiful young woman with a unique style.
If she step out, she's going to be dressed, she's going to have on her jewelry, and her hair is going to be done. That's the kind of person she was. Like, she's not stepping out the door without being put together.
In 1999, while still in high school, Angel had to grow up fast.
When she had her first daughter, I was 7. So she was young, she was 16. And I just remember her, I remember her coming home with her and everything, and she was just with us.
At age 21, she gave birth to a second child. By then, Angel was more prepared to take on the responsibilities of motherhood.
Her second baby, yeah, she grew up a little bit. She was more family-oriented. Not that she wasn't family-oriented, but she didn't go out as much. She was more home, like she became more reserved.
Then in 2008, Angel met the man she would marry.
When she met Johnny, it was like everything went fast. Like fast.
One thing I liked about him, he never treated her kids like they weren't his. He stepped right into, I think he liked being a father and having a family, because I didn't think he had that. With him, like, I seen a different, like, side of her or whatever. Like, it was like it changed good.
Angel and Johnny exchanged vows on August 8th, 2008. 1 year later, they welcomed a son.
She was in a beautiful relationship for the most part. From what I seen, everything was beautiful. I mean, they had everything under the sun.
At that point, from the outside looking in, it looked like she had a good life.
But less than a year later, Angel's family makes a visit to the Cuyahoga County Coroner's Office that will change their lives forever.
They did go to the morgue to identify the person that the police had in their custody. They did indeed realize it was Angel.
I feel real bad for any mother to have to walk in there and identify their child. But I had to identify my baby because that's my baby, She was my everything.
Even though Angel has been identified, Cleveland police find no other evidence along the side of the interstate where her body was found.
Because there was no evidence found, it was determined that Angel was not killed at that site, but was killed somewhere else and dumped at that site. So the police, as a result, have no idea where or why she was murdered, and everything about this case so far is a mystery.
Hours after 26-year-old Angel Bradley Crockett is found dead, Cleveland detectives speak with her family.
They were taking in accountability of our thoughts and, what we had to say. Because that first day, that's all we were. Who did this? Who did it?
Everybody was trying to really piece her night together and when the last time they seen her and the time frames and stuff like that and who was the last person she was seen with.
Family members say Angel spent the previous day with them.
We had just came back from the IX Center amusement park. Everybody was getting ready to go out. It was Easter. So everybody is going out. She want to find a babysitter for the kids.
Angel's cousins volunteered to watch her two older kids, and her mother and sister agreed to take care of her youngest.
When she asked me to take care of the baby that night, she was going out to the club. I don't know what club, but she was going out to the club. I'll be back in the morning to pick him up.
Angel's family tells police that she had plans to meet up with a man.
I don't know his name. We just knew him as Smoke.
Angel and Smoke had known each other from the neighborhood.
I can't say she was in a relationship because they was just friends. I mean, what they did, I don't know what they did. I wasn't there, but they always was, was friends.
Angel was still married, but she was separated and estranged from her husband, who was in prison now.
They got into a physical altercation, and she was hospitalized.
We saw her when she came home from hospital because she came to our house, so it was just, heartbreaking. Nobody want to see their sibling like that.
That was the last time he put his hands on her, because she put him in the penitentiary. That never happened in her life, dealing with any guys, and that was the first time, and it was the last time.
The family says Johnny remains incarcerated. Angel was trying to move on with her life, but the family expresses concern that Johnny could be holding a grudge.
According to Angel's sister Nadia, rumors were swirling around that potentially Johnny had hired someone to kill Angel in revenge for getting him incarcerated.
The family is also suspicious of Angel's friend, Smoke.
She went to go meet him about 11 p.m. at night to go to the bar, and she was supposed to be coming back home afterwards. The bar closed at 2:30.
Angel's mother tells police that in the early morning, she receives a phone call from Smoke.
The guy is calling, asking us, where's Sugarbone at? And we was like, she was with you.
How are you looking for her if she was with you? And then he was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. And hung up.
A few hours later, Smoke called again.
He was like, I ain't trying to bug you or nothing to that effect, but it's just odd that she haven't called me or nothing to that effect. So that's when I got real worried.
According to relatives, Angel told them that Smoke always kept close tabs on her.
I know, she was saying, he was buggy. Like he'll drop her off and then call her. When you just dropped me off at home. And then if she didn't answer, he'll be calling my grandma's house phone or whatever to see was she over my grandma because she had her own house. At the time, I think she was in the process of breaking that relationship up with the boyfriend.
Angel felt that he was too clingy and a little possessive, and this was a red flag for investigators.
Based on interviews with the family, investigators narrow their focus to Angel's husband, Johnny, and her alleged boyfriend, Smoke. They reach out to the Ohio prison system and try to track down Johnny. And the family gives them a phone number for Smoke so they can start searching for him.
Then, investigators learn there could be another explanation behind Angel's death.
She had a brand new vehicle. She had a lot of jewelry on her. The jewelry that she was wearing would definitely attract attention.
She didn't have any of this jewelry on her when she was found. And police learned that her brand new SUV is also missing.
Patricia lets the police know that Angel's SUV is also missing, so police put out a bolo for that vehicle, hoping that they can find Angel's killer.
In the midst of that situation, everybody was taking care of the kids. We were all over my grandmother's house. So everybody was taking care of the kids. And we talked to my nephew. He was too young. He was only like 8 months. The little girls, they were like 8 and 4. So I don't think the 4-year-old really understood. The 8-year-old understood because her and her mom were close. And, you know, they were just shattered and devastated.
They took it as good as they babies, as good as they could take it. The first thing they do is look up at me. You know, so I'm like, come on, you guys coming with me, you know? And that's what I did. I took the kids with me.
Hours after Angel Bradley Crockett's body was discovered on the side of the interstate, Cleveland investigators meet with the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner to learn her cause of death.
It is determined by the medical examiner that the cause of death is strangulation and blunt force trauma to the head, trunk, and extremities. Angel was dead before she was placed on the roadside.
Of course, they had suspected this was a homicide and had treated it as such, but now it's official.
Cleveland police attempt to track down Smoke, the man Angel went out with on the night she died.
They were able to get a phone number from one of his family members, and they tracked that phone number to an address on West 33rd Street. They went to the address, but Smoke was not there, but somehow they found out that he was actually at Metro Hospital.
He was at the hospital because him and his baby mother had got into a physical altercation. That was the same night that Angel disappeared.
According to Smoke, after Angel left the club, he got into an altercation with his ex-girlfriend. The situation ended up in a physical fight, which is how he ended up at the hospital. He appears to be visibly scratched.
Because Smoke was the last person seen with Angel, and now with them finding him at the hospital scratched up, obviously the police's first thought would be that this fight occurred between him and Angel.
Smoke's story raises suspicions, and the police start to think that he could be a part of Angel's murder. The police decide to verify his alibi as the next step.
Police are able to confirm that the story he is telling is true. His time is accounted for the time they believe Angel was killed.
So the police were convinced that he was not involved and that his injuries had nothing to do with Angel's homicide.
The second suspect that the police look into is Angel's husband, Johnny, who's incarcerated.
At the time of her murder, her husband was in prison because of the domestic violence situation in their relationship. They think maybe her husband had something to do with it, you know, from jail, because they had just got into that domestic violence situation. And, you know, with her, you know, going to court, testifying, you know, people, you know, do crazy stuff.
When police speak with Johnny, he appears visibly shocked by the news. He expressed the same disbelief and grief as Angel's family and agreed to cooperate in any way that he could.
When the interview is over, investigators dismiss Johnny as a potential suspect.
Since Johnny was incarcerated during Angel's murder, he had an ironclad alibi.
With him being in prison, he couldn't have been there physically to injure Angel. and they ruled out any motive or any idea that he could have hired someone to hurt her.
Then, on Tuesday, April 6th, 24 hours after Angel was last seen alive, Cleveland police get a lead.
The police do receive a tip from a neighbor about an abandoned vehicle that had been parked on the street for 2 days.
It is an SUV, and it's identified by officers as the subject of the Bolo alert. This is Angel's car. It was located on the east side, about 5 miles from where her body was found.
Authorities tow the vehicle to the impound lot, where it can be processed for evidence.
There was no evidence in her car that was immediately helpful to the investigation. They were able to send some DNA samples off, but those will take time to come back.
The technicians who process the vehicle make a note of its condition.
They noticed what appeared to be some fresh damage to the rear end, which reportedly was otherwise in really good shape. And that was verified by her mother, Patricia. When they asked her about the damage, Patricia said that that damage was not there the day before. So this was new and fresh damage, which probably was evidence that something else had gone on in the vehicle or to the vehicle.
The vehicle had been in some sort of fender bender the night that Angel died. They had to consider on whether that had anything to do with her death.
Investigators dig deep, searching for any potential leads.
That's when an investigator made a potential connection between Angel's murder and a phone call that had come in a couple of days before.
Another tip comes in, and this person indicates to police that she lent her van to an ex on Easter Sunday. The ex returned her vehicle in worse shape to her than when she had lent it. The front end and bumper of her van was badly damaged, but it was what she found inside of her van that made her call police. There was blood everywhere.
There was front end damage to her van, and Angel's SUV also had damage. Is this the vehicle that caused the damage to her car? Could that be her blood inside?
Crockett's murder. Cleveland police contact a woman who called in to say her boyfriend returned her borrowed van with damage to the front end and blood inside.
The woman says that her ex-boyfriend, Stephen Davis, borrowed her van on Sunday, April 4th at about 10 p.m.
When she asked Stephen Davis what had happened to the vehicle, he pretty much just shook his head and walked away from her with no explanation.
For investigators, the timeline Stefan had the van is an immediate red flag.
And he did not return the van until Monday, April 5th, around 7 a.m. The 9-hour window matches the time in which Angel was last seen and when her body was taken from the scene.
They take a look at the van, which has already been towed to the impound lot.
There was a strong odor of chemicals like bleach and cleaning products. CSI took samples of what is clearly blood and fast-tracked them to get identification. The police immediately try to locate Stephen Davis in their system. He has a long rap sheet.
He had a violent past. He was convicted of murdering his aunt's boyfriend at 14 years old. He was convicted, found guilty, and was remanded to juvenile custody until he was 21 years old.
When he was released, Stefan continued to stay on the wrong side of the law.
After several guilty pleas, including a federal case involving conspiracy to trafficking cocaine, Davis was sentenced in 2004 to 50 months in prison.
So at this point, knowing now his history, the police are very well convinced that he is capable of murder. But the police are still puzzled as to the connection between him and Angel.
On Saturday, April 10th, the forensic testing from the blood in the van is complete.
Results of the DNA test from the blood in the van come back positive. They are a match for the blood that was taken from Angel's body.
Police do some follow-up. They find several eyewitnesses who saw Stefan driving the van the morning after the murder.
On April 11th, 6 days after Angel's murder, they placed Davis under arrest at his mother's home. The 30-year-old surrenders without incident.
Stefan Davis is charged with aggravated murder.
That same morning, investigators sit down with Stefan, hopeful for answers. But Stefan appears shocked to learn of the charge against him.
My arrest for what in particular? Aggravated murder. Aggravated murder. Oh, you know Angel, brother? I've never seen her, never spoke to her.
Then they tell him that they know that he was driving the van with Angel's blood in it.
Okay, well, how does that link me to the murder? You were the last one with the van? Well, I wasn't the last one.
Stefan said he dropped his ex off at work. Then he took her van back to her house where he left it. He then went home at 11:30 on Easter and spent the night with his son.
The following day, she called my phone, like, well, what's going on with my vehicle? So I said, what is you talking about? She said, one of my kids are in trouble. There was some blood in my vehicle, etc., etc.
Stefan says his ex told him her son was responsible.
She told me, like, one of these boys are missing. He's the one to help us.
Stefan says he went back to her house, but the young man wouldn't talk to him.
When I say, come talk to me, what happened, tell me what's up, what's really going on, he wouldn't come downstairs.
His ex then asked him to help them clean the van out. And Stefan says he refused, and then he left.
I'm not about to put myself in those situations. I'm a single dad, once got custody of my son. I'm in college, everything is going great in my life.
He is adamant he didn't do it, and that his ex is just trying to pin this on him.
I don't know how they did it, when they did it, why they did it.
After being arrested for the murder of Angel Bradley Crockett, Stefan Davis tells police he believes his ex-girlfriend's son is responsible.
The police aren't buying this, though. They have witnesses who said they saw him driving the van the day after the murder.
Stefan remains in custody. 2 days after his arrest, he sends word to detectives that he has more to say.
I need to speak to you about my participation in this situation. Right.
They think that he's about to confess, but instead, he said that he was helping his ex's son clean out the van.
They said somebody was stabbed. One of their friends was stabbed in the car, and they helped me clean up, and my mother gonna be pissed. I'm like, cool, not a problem. Not a problem.
And the only thing that you did was help clean the van.
That's it.
I guess we should just let you go then.
They know that he's lying, but he will absolutely not budge.
Tell us something different, because right now we don't believe a word you're saying on most of this stuff.
What I'm supposed to say? The truth. I told you the truth. No, you didn't tell us the truth.
Investigators really need more, but they're not getting it from Stefan. But they do end up getting it from someone else.
Shortly thereafter, the police receive a call from an individual who states that they are Letitia Santos's cousin, and that she knows that Letitia Santos has been dating Stefan Davis. She believes that Letitia Santos has information about this murder.
Her cousin said that Angel's SUV was found near her house, and Letitia leaves with her sometimes.
The cousin reached out to Letitia after finding out that Angel's van was recovered 2 doors down, basically. She reached out to her cousin Letitia and said, "You have to let me know what's going on so I can help you."
Letitia responded hysterically, "I don't know what he did, and I don't know why he would do this." Letitia said she was afraid of Stefan and frightened for her life.
The cousin also told the police that she hasn't seen Letitia since Easter Day. She asked where Letitia was, but she won't give up her location.
Unable to contact Letitia Santos, authorities issue a warrant for her arrest on a charge of obstructing justice.
Even though Letitia's location was not known because of the pressure from her family, and from pressure from the police, on April 20th, she decided to call the police and to turn herself in.
She places Stephen Davis in the van on the night of Easter Sunday. She said she had gotten into a fight with Stephen in the van. He busted her lip and left.
Shortly after Letitia leaves, he sends a text saying, "I'm about to F." Letitia Santos texts back, "Go ahead."
She's saying she doesn't know what happened to Angel. Police don't believe this, and they keep her in jail.
The next day, Letitia admits she was holding back.
She said Stephen told her that he got into a car accident with Angel. He said that Angel didn't have a driver's license or insurance. So Stephen convinced her to follow him to Charter Avenue, where he robbed and killed her and dumped her body. Letitia said she wasn't with him. She only knows this because he told her and asked for her help afterwards.
She said that he had threatened to kill her if she didn't help him clean out the van.
One thing she stays constant on, she was never inside Angel's SUV. So police asked her to prove it by giving a DNA sample, and she complies.
Letitia remains in custody as they wait for the results. When they come in, they prove that Letitia is still not telling the truth.
The DNA shows that at some point, Letitia Santos was in Angel's car, which means she still hasn't told police the full story because none of her accounts place her in Angel's car.
On April 22nd, authorities turn up the heat. They revise the criminal charge against Letitia.
The charges were upgraded to 1 count of aggravated murder. Both faced the death penalty if they were convicted of their charges, and at this time, both maintained their innocence.
Neither one of them are budging, but prosecutors want the truth, and they want justice for the family. They need one of them to talk before this heads to trial.
The prosecutors offer Santos a charge of involuntary manslaughter instead of the aggravated murder for her cooperation and willingness to testify against Davis.
On January 26, 2011, Letitia Santos talks to investigators again. This time, she promises the truth.
According to Letitia Santos, on April 4th of 2010, Davis borrows a van from his ex-girlfriend, picks up Letitia Santos. They go to a liquor store to buy alcohol and are drinking in the van.
They were riding around in the van drinking. When about 1 o'clock in the morning, an SUV pulled out in front of them and Stefan ran into the back of the SUV. That SUV turned out to be Angel Crockett's SUV.
Angel becomes extremely upset about the accident because it was a brand new vehicle. When Angel asks Davis who's going to pay for the damages, Davis suggests that they go talk about it and get out of the busy street.
Angel didn't have a driver's license or insurance. So Stefan persuaded her to come with him so that they could try and settle this in a private matter.
According to Santos, on the way to this area, Davis and Santos conspired to rob Angel.
Stefan had noticed she was wearing a lot of jewelry, her nice truck, so he thought that she would have money. Stefan told Letitia, we're gonna rob her. And according to Letitia's account, she said, why not?
In early 2011, Letitia Santos tells investigators that she and her boyfriend, Stefan Davis, planned to rob Angel Bradley Crockett in the early morning hours of April 5th. When they arrived in Stefan's neighborhood, he and Angel's conversation about the traffic accident takes a dark turn.
So Stefan asked Angel to give him her money. She said she didn't have any. So he began to punch her in the face. Letitia Santos also admits that she punched Angel in the back of the head with a closed fist. Stefan Davis took the car keys from Angel and gave them to Letitia to tell her to go look in Angel's SUV to see if she had money in the SUV.
When Letitia returned to the van, the situation had escalated.
According to Santos, Davis beat Angel mercilessly and assaulted her in the van.
She was horrified and asked him to stop. After that, he told her to get in the driver's seat and drive. She said she was horrified, so she just did exactly what he told her to do.
Santos is driving the van and Davis is in the back. Santos looks in the rearview mirror and sees Davis strangling Angel with something that looked like a shoestring. She then doesn't hear Angel anymore.
Later that morning, Letitia says she helped Stefan dispose of the body on the side of the road.
Santos and Davis decide to go dump Angel on I-90. Angel was stripped of her clothing, 2 wedding rings, a watch, and a necklace. Then they drove back to get Angel's SUV.
Letitia says that Stefan had her drive Angel's SUV away from where the original crime scene was, where the murder happened. She drove Angel's vehicle to her street, 2 doors down from her house, and according to the report, strolled back to her house. The vehicle was subsequently recovered in that location, 2 doors down from Letitia's house.
Stefan didn't know Angel, but when she got upset over the accident, he decided that he would show her who's in control. He took his rage out on her that night.
On February 17, 2011, Letitia Santos pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter in exchange for her testimony against Davis. The decision to testify against Davis can be considered payback for all of the abuse that she had endured and maybe endured the night of Angel's murder.
With the truth finally exposed, Stefan feels the pressure.
A day before we get ready to go to court, I got called back down there, and they said Stefan Davis wanted to cop out to 40 to life. He didn't want to go to trial.
Instead of facing a capital murder trial, Davis decides to enter a plea of guilty to aggravated murder and aggravated robbery.
Angel's family faces the horrific details about what happened to her.
That's a painful way to go. To get beaten and strangled, So everybody was just devastated. You wouldn't wish that on nobody. And then just left in the cold. I try to think about her last moments, what was going through her head. That stuff haunts me.
On January 13th, 2012, Stefan Davis is sentenced to 40 years to life in prison.
I remember sitting there, I remember the judge asking people if they wanted to come up and say anything to Stefan Davis or anything, and people went up, people spoke about their experience with her and, let him know what he did to them. And I remember that he didn't show no remorse or anything. He just sat there and, yeah, it is what it is, real arrogantly, just, yep.
It was clear that this man needed to prove his power by showing women that he was in control through violence. That night, Angel was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she paid the price for his anger.
40 years to life, that's not enough time because half of it's almost done. I don't think he should be released at all.
Less than 2 weeks later, Letitia Santos appears in court.
On January 24th, 2012, Letitia Santos received a sentence of 10 years for aggravated robbery, abuse of a corpse, and involuntary manslaughter.
Letitia Santos was released in 21. I think she should be still in prison. I really do.
People do more time selling drugs. She murdered somebody. Y'all kidnapped my sister, y'all beat her and strangled her, and y'all threw her body on a freeway. And you got 10 years for that? Make it make sense. I do not feel like justice was served.
I think the day that Angel died, like a part of everybody that knew her not just family. A part of them was missing. She was just a big ball of sunshine. Like she entered the room was lighting up immediately. I know life would be different for all of us, for sure, if she was here, definitely.
I just want to let everybody know that Sugar Bone is gone, but she's not forgotten. And she's gonna live on through her kids and through me and her sisters and her brothers. We're gonna continue to stay strong.
Crimes like these are usually from somebody you know, somebody you're close with, somebody intimate.
There was a lot of talk in the neighborhood of this girl going around pretty much bragging.
She said what happened to him was payback.
She gets upset, something happens, and she uses violence.
She, in fact, was proud that she had won the fight.
It's a cool March night in 2017 when Chicago PD receives a call from the Inglewood neighborhood on the city's south side.
On March 6, 2017, at approximately 1:30 in the morning, there was a 911 call from a woman who was calling for help to the 6500 block of South Bishop Street.
She tells them that her friend Darius, who's 26 years old at the time, is at her door and he is foaming at the mouth and can barely breathe.
The victim made his way up to the second floor apartment.
He was in the hallway on the ground. They let him in and he crawled inside and lay on his back. The Chicago Fire Department was the first to arrive on scene. They found Darius Ellis stretched out on the ground, difficulty breathing. He was foaming from the mouth, his eyes were streaming, and his face was blue, like he was lacking oxygen.
The first responders notice a familiar but toxic odor.
There was an overpowering smell of bleach.
The Chicago Police Department ambulance immediately transported Darius to Stroger Hospital, which is one of our best level 1 trauma hospitals.
Darius Ellis was born in 1990 and raised in Inglewood. He grew up with his 10 siblings nearby.
We have a big family. We all grew up around each other. My father made it very clear that he wanted us to be close, so the age gap between me and Darius is only 3 years. My mom likes to call us 2 peas in a pod. We grew up about 4 blocks away from each other. For quite some time, his mom stayed literally maybe 4 to 5 blocks away from my mother, and we were there for 15 plus years. So we were very close, like, to each other. We would hang out every day. He would say I was his little big sister because of the way I treated him. He would literally be reluctant to tell me things if he did something wrong. That's how much I was more of the serious one, the one that really wanted him to, like, just be his best.
In the 90s, Inglewood was a close-knit community.
We could play all night with no issues, like till the street lights came on. We played basketball in the alleys with crates and played it and rode bikes and were able to just be kids at one point. And it seemed like at the drop of a dime, everything shifted and we had to worry about shootings and, a lot more violent things.
As Darius grew older, he took an interest in working out and weightlifting.
He's always been really active. He would lift weights. He didn't need to go to a gym. He could set up right at home, and he would just get busy. And then the next thing you know, we're getting a blast of pictures with his shirt off. So he had to show off those muscles, those pecs. He would be flexing. He was just proud of the progress he was making,
His physique, combined with his natural good looks, made Darius popular with the ladies.
The ladies loved him. He loved them back. He was fun, outgoing, easy.
And I definitely will say women seen how attractive he was. And when he met his baby mother, he actually told me about her after she got pregnant.
At 21 years old, Darius became a father.
Darius' life changed, I feel like, drastically when he had his son. I feel like when he had his child, it gave him purpose. That love, I feel like, is immediately when Darius had his kid, he made that decision to make sure that he would be in this kid's life every day, show up every day, because it was important, because we knew how it was to not have that. That void in our heart, I feel like, pushed him to just be the best. He just wanted to be the best he could be for his kid. He was a welder. He was getting into the construction business. Him and another one of my brothers as well. They both were kind of like going tit for tat with that. That was their interest.
Darius worked on various construction projects throughout the city.
I remember him telling me about it and just being like, man, sis, I'm doing construction and it's going really well. I did this big project. Like, he was just happy about it, and I was proud of him, you know, just seeing him go for something that he loved doing.
He was well on his way to making himself known in that industry.
His relationship with his son's mother didn't last. In 2015, Darius met 22-year-old Yasmin Elder.
When they met, Yasmin wasn't really interested in Darius. She thought that he was a player. She thought that he had a lot of women. And so she didn't really want to invest her time there. But eventually, he was able to charm her, wear her down, and they entered into this relationship.
Yasmin was a bright spot, but 2017 brought big challenges as well.
He was a welder, but he was living in his van at the time, in between jobs, just down on his luck.
With welding and stuff, it's only certain projects you can get. So I feel like it kind of fell slow for a little bit for him. So he was struggling. Here's the thing, though. Darius always have somewhere to go. He could come to my home, open arms, without a problem. And he knew that. He was aware. I just think he was just one of those strong-willed men that didn't want to budge on, asking anybody for too much help. He just didn't want to be a burden. He was a strong man. He wanted to be a man. He was dealing with things.
On March 6th, Darius is rushed to a local trauma center after showing up at a friend's apartment, foaming at the mouth and reeking of bleach. Doctors spend 2 hours trying to save him.
Unfortunately, it's too late. At 3:26 in the morning, Darius is pronounced dead at the hospital.
I was working as a detective assigned to Area 2, and our office received a phone call about a death investigation from 7th District personnel, and they stated they had a deceased victim at Stroger Hospital. I arrived in the early morning hours. It was probably around 4:00 a.m. And I went to the emergency room where I spoke to the doctor about the details of the deceased, and he stated that the victim had some type of caustic substance poured onto his face and his nose area. He said that the caustic substance that was in his nose and mouth would have burned his throat and caused it to swell, thereby causing him to suffocate.
In the morgue, detectives get confirmation as to what that substance was.
They opened up the body bag and were immediately struck by a very strong smell of bleach. Police detectives inspected Darius's clothing, and there was a very strong odor of bleach. They immediately inventoried that property.
I took the clothing out of the bag to examine it, and I came across a black hooded sweatshirt that had a distinct spill pattern around the neck area, and it was discolored orange from the black. And through my rubber gloves, I could feel that the clothing was completely soaked. Because of the large amount of bleach involved, this led me to believe that this was not self-inflicted, that we had a murder on our hands.
The detective was able to determine that this was foul play pretty much immediately.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And who the hell would do this to someone? It just leaves you speechless.
17. 26-year-old Darius Ellis dies at a Chicago hospital after showing up at a friend's apartment in distress.
When the detective talked to the doctor said there was extensive damage done to the inside of his mouth and his throat from bleach, and the initial cause of death was asphyxiation.
The police were able to recognize that this was foul play.
I spoke to the patrol officers that were at the hospital. They gave me the particulars of the case, provided me with the name of the victim and the location of where they believed the crime may have occurred. So I finished my investigation at the hospital at that time and then relocated to the crime scene. I went up to the second floor apartment on Bishop and I spoke to a witness who turned out to be a friend of the victim, Darius Ellis.
In the apartment, we have 3 adults. We have Darius's friend, and we have the son of Darius's friend and his girlfriend.
These were the witnesses in the house who helped Darius when he knocked on the door asking for help.
Around 12:30 in the evening, Darius's lady friend heard a knock on her apartment door. And she proceeded to the door and heard Darius whisper in a raspy voice through the door, "It's me, Darius."
When she opens the door, she sees her friend Darius lying outside of her apartment on the ground, arms spread, legs spread, gasping for air.
She could hear his labored breathing. She could see that there was just a white foamy substance coming from his mouth. But what was so surprising and just astounding was that the aroma that was coming from him. And there was just that overwhelming stench of some type of cleaning chemical.
Darius tried to speak.
He told her that 2 men had held him down and poured bleach into his face.
He quickly became unable to talk, but his friend noticed he was still trying to communicate with her.
Darius couldn't talk because he was struggling to breathe, but he held up a cell phone and showed it to this woman. She did not know what he meant by this gesture, but she did know that this cell phone did not belong to Darius.
At that point, the friend became too concerned about Darius's health to try and understand what he was communicating.
She realizes very quickly that Darius is getting worse, so she has no choice but to call 911.
She points out that the flip phone was left behind when Darius was loaded into the ambulance.
The police are able to recover a few things. They get his cell phone and they also get this flip phone, and they're able to also get his car keys.
Darius's friend says that his silver minivan is still parked in front of her building.
She informed the police of what he had been doing. Lately, he's trained as a welder, but he had been in between jobs and unfortunately living in his van.
I was able to obtain the keys to Darius's minivan, and upon opening it, I was instantly overwhelmed with a very strong odor of bleach. It was so strong that I was unable to investigate the interior of the vehicle without going back to my squad car and getting a mask.
Once inside the minivan, police noticed large amounts of liquid on the windshield, on the passenger seat, and on the floor. Immediately, the police called for an evidence technician to have him swab the liquid and take photographs.
I noticed a spill pattern on the front seats of the vehicle, which caused a discoloration to the darker interior, making it orange in appearance, which matched the same spill pattern I saw in Darius's hooded sweatshirt in the hospital. Upon examining inside the vehicle, there was numerous items strewn about, clothing, and a liquid substance was all over the windshield, the seats, the floorboards, the ceiling, which was indicative of a struggle in a close quarters area.
The detective is able to confirm that this is definitely the scene of the crime.
While it's clear a struggle took place in the van, investigators don't believe Darius's claim that he was attacked by two large men.
Seeing the interior of the minivan and how cluttered it was, there was no way two big guys were pinning him down inside a minivan. The statement he made to the witnesses and the patrolman's reports led me to believe that he was trying to cover for someone.
All new True Crime Monday, A Bride to Be.
She always wanted marriage, family.
Banish It.
Darius had a bad habit of smoking cigarettes. And he liked to call me his big little sister because anytime he would come around me, he would forget. And he'll pull out a cigarette and I'll snatch it out of his hand and I'll break it. And he used to be like so upset. He's like, man, I just bought that pack. I'm like, dude, you're not doing that. We're not having that. That's one of the funniest memories I think I have with him all the time. Another one was his will of asking everybody, don't we look alike? Don't we look alike? That's my sister. He was so proud to be my big brother. Like, that was something that I always would like carry with me. Everywhere we go, everybody I introduced him to, he would just be like, don't we look alike? That's my little sister. That's my real sister. You know, so it made me feel like he was just proud to be, you know, my brother. And that meant a lot.
In March of 2017, Chicago detectives are in the Inglewood neighborhood investigating the bizarre death of 26-year-old Darius Ellis. After processing the van where they suspect Darius was forced to drink bleach, they scour the area for evidence.
We were looking for a carton or something, type of container that could hold the bleach, and we checked the garbage cans nearby, we checked the empty lot.
Before they leave, they ask Darius's friend who the single father spent time with.
She responded that Darius had a history of being a ladies' man, but that lately he had actually been dedicating all of his time and energy to one woman in particular, 24-year-old Yasmin.
Yasmin lived a few blocks away. She was a few years younger than he was. She was living with her relatives, an uncle, her grandparents.
Before they talk to Yasmin, investigators learn that the Cook County medical examiner has completed Darius's autopsy.
The doctors concluded that the pH level in Darius's stomach was at 12 to 13, which is more than double the amount of a normal human's pH level.
The chemical makeup or whatever of bleach would cause your throat and mouth to swell so quickly that instantly closes like a fist and you die from suffocating. He couldn't breathe. He died because he got asphyxiated. His findings were that Darius's death was caused by the forced administration of a caustic substance. It's officially ruled a homicide. I've been on hundreds of crime scenes before. Big city detective, we've seen it all. I've never seen anything like this before. This was murder with bleach. Unusual.
As far as who could be responsible, Darius's family is at a loss.
Darius didn't have any enemies. He got along with his ex. He had a close relationship with his son.
To be honest with you, I don't even understand what motive anyone would have to want to poison someone and kill them.
Later that day, detectives ask the woman who called 911 to come to the station for a follow-up interview. She relays a troubling story.
The friend told police that on the night of the incident, when Darius was taken to the hospital, that she walked down to Darius's family's home so that she could relate to them what had happened. On her way to their home, she ran into Yasmin Elder.
She stopped and she informed Yasmin of what had happened to Darius, and Yasmin's response, she laughed. Darius's friend also said that then Yasmin said, as she was laughing, he shouldn't have put his hands on me.
Yasmin's reaction to what happened to Darius and the state that he was in, the laughter is, it's troublesome.
The police asked Darius' friend if she noticed that Yasmin had any injuries on her body. Darius's friend stated that, nope, not to her. She didn't see that there were any injuries noted on Yasmin's body, but did say that Yasmin made mention that bleach had gotten into her eyes and that they were burning.
She doesn't know her last name, but tells police Yasmin lives in the neighborhood and has been in trouble with the law before.
The woman let police know that Yasmin wouldn't be hard to find. She has a distinguishable tattoo on her neck. She does have a past with law enforcement, so she's in the system.
I told my supervisor, I got a hot case going here, and it's domestic related, and we could probably solve it right now. I'm going to ask for help from the day's violent crimes guys, and they helped me out. I threw out that name Yasmin, 4-block area where she lives, and a tattoo on her neck. That's when Civisec put the parameters in, and within 1 minute, we came back with that picture.
Investigators find one woman who matches all those criteria. 24-year-old Yasmin Elder.
I was able to pull up Yasmin's arrest photo because just recently she was arrested for battery.
She had been accused of using a metal lock to hit her landlord in the head during a dispute. They find that she's currently on court supervision.
Yasmin now has an established history of being violent. It's sounding like that she gets upset, something happens, and she uses violence.
They take Yasmin's picture to Darius's friend.
Based on all of the information that the police had, they put together a photo lineup, and they showed it to the woman, and the woman immediately pointed Yasmin out.
After the witnesses picked Yasmin out of a photo array, we now had probable cause to effect an arrest.
Chicago police look into the gruesome death of 26-year-old Darius Ellis. They learn of incriminating statements made by his girlfriend, Yasmin Elder, in the hours after he died.
Yasmin laughed and said to the friend, he shouldn't have put his hands on me.
Based on all of the information that detectives were finding out about Yasmin, her law enforcement past, the troubles that she's had, the court supervision, the battery charge, it was beginning to look more and more like maybe she did have something to do with this and we need to talk to her immediately.
As investigators prepare to bring Yasmin in, they know that connecting her to the crime could rest in a clue Darius offered just before he lost consciousness.
He couldn't speak, so what he did was he had a phone in his hand, he held it up, and they knew that the phone wasn't his.
He was holding a phone in his hand. When they asked, who did this to you? What happened? All Darius could do was point to the phone in his hand.
The key to the whole case was Darius holding up that phone.
Armed with an arrest warrant, police head back to Inglewood to look for Yasmin.
So we quickly went to the last known address where we believed Yasmin was staying, which was her grandmother's house. Yasmin wasn't home at the time, but her grandmother did state she was staying there. After speaking with the grandmother, we were able to have her sign a consent to search form in order to search the area where Yasmin was staying, looking for evidence.
They're able to go into Yasmin's room and do a search, and what do they find? They find a pair of black pants that are covered in red stains that seem like bleach stains.
Speaking to the grandmother stated those were the clothes she wore the night before when she came home and changed. We seized the pair of pants and had them recovered by an evidence technician to test the liquid stain on the pants.
Yasmin's grandmother doesn't know where she is.
We told her we'd like to speak with Yasmin, and we left our business card with her, and then we left.
Word hits the street that the police are looking for Yasmin. But the rumors are already running wild.
There was a lot of things being said in that neighborhood. Like I said, everything was close. It was a lot of talk in the neighborhood of this girl going around pretty much bragging about it. I don't think any of us knew about Yasmin. I've never met her. So I didn't know, I had no recollection of this lady whatsoever. I didn't know who she was, to be honest. I didn't know anything of her into this situation. but we were looking for her, essentially. Like, we were trying to get her in custody. We were trying to figure out what this woman was.
Time was very important because we were afraid that she might try to flee the state or flee whatever, because she has to know she's a wanted person.
It appears that Yasmin does know that she is being sought after by police.
Several hours later, we're contacted by Yasmin saying she was willing to speak with us.
After getting that call from Yasmin, police immediately went to her home and arrested her.
She was very cooperative, turned herself in. Yasmin was transported to detective headquarters where she was placed in an interview room and placed under video and audio surveillance. She was Mirandized, stated she understood her rights, and she was willing to speak with the detectives.
Detectives have a lot of questions for Yasmin.
In my entire career, there are very few incidences of people dying from ingestion of bleach.
It's just not understandable. Bleach. This is what killed this man. Bleach was poured down his throat. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And who the hell would do this to someone?
Due to the totality of the circumstances, I believed what we had was a domestic relationship murder with a crime of passion. Several times you have murders and somebody gets shot once or twice, but when you come across somebody who has an intimate relationship with someone and they're hurt, they sometimes conduct what we call overkill. They will stab a victim several times, not just once or twice. They will continue to shoot them, not just once or twice. And when you have a caustic substance used in a murder like this, all signs would lead to believe that they had some type of romantic relationship with each other. Yasmin's statement to Darius's friends that he shouldn't put his hands on me sounds like payback to me.
After Darius Ellis dies from forcibly ingesting bleach, Chicago detectives question the main suspect, his girlfriend, Yasmin Elder.
So once the police arrest Yasmin, they ask her what was the relationship like between her and Darius.
They were on and off. They saw each other, but it wasn't serious. About a month before the incident, they decided to get serious, and they were in fact engaged to be married.
Yasmin told detectives that she and Darius had been dating on and off since 2015, but at the beginning of 2017, they finally decided to get engaged.
But instead of happiness, the decision brought instant drama.
Darius and Yasmin both were experiencing some insecurities around the relationship. Even though they were supposed to be committed, they both were in fear that there were other people involved on both of their sides. Yasmin believed that Darius was a ladies' man. Darius had caught Yasmin texting an ex-boyfriend and had some insecurities around that. Yasmin was also very upset that in 2 years she had never met his family and they were about to get married.
It just became a toxic relationship. He just became so much more enraged, so much more jealous. He would accuse her of cheating, and sometimes he got physically abusive, according to Yasmin.
Yasmin told police that the physical violence had increased over the last 2 weeks prior to the incident. That in fact, 5 days prior to the incident, while at a laundromat with Darius, that Darius caught her texting her ex-boyfriend on her cell phone. Darius became so enraged that he choked her.
When detectives asked Yasmin why she didn't report any of this domestic abuse before, she said that she was under supervision for a fight that she had unrelated to this incident and was afraid that police just wouldn't believe her.
She says that by the night of his death, tension between them was high.
Yasmin told police that on the night of the incident, Darius had picked her up around 12:30 a.m. on the morning of March 6th. During their ride home, Darius became enraged because she was in fact texting the ex-boyfriend again during the ride.
He pulled over, came out of the car, ripped her out of the car and threw her to the ground. Yasmin says she got up again, but he grabbed her and threw her down a second time. Yasmin told detectives that she was screaming for help and that Darius picked her up and forced her back into the van.
And she tries to call 911, and he knocks the phone out of her hand.
Yasmin told detectives that during the fight, Darius bit her hand, grabbed both her arms, punched her in the thigh, and in the back of the head. Darius pulled over, and now it was a physical altercation. He was punching her, he tried getting on top of her, but Yasmin grabbed his hair and was pulling him and eventually got him on the ground between the seats.
Yasmin stated she was able to overpower Darius by pulling him to the ground by his hair and then pinning him there with her knee using her weight. She also made a statement that she said, at this time, I was winning the fight.
Saying things like, I'm winning this fight, implies that in this moment, Yasmin felt vindicated in what she was doing. She felt like, you know, maybe you've done this to me before, and this time it's not going to happen. I'm going to win. I'm going to stand up for myself.
When police asked Yasmin how she was able to overpower Darius, she told police that she weighs 207 pounds. And at the time of Darius's death, he weighed 130 pounds.
The fight continued into the back seat of the minivan, at which time Darius swung a plastic bottle at her that she said contained bleach, but she blocked it.
Yasmin wasn't sure if Darius was attempting to hit her with a bleach bottle or attempting to splash her with the bleach.
Yasmin feels like she has to fight. She's in survivor mode. So while Yasmin's knee is still on Darius's waist, she's able to gain control of the bleach and take it away from Darius. At this point, she starts to pour the bleach all into Darius's mouth.
Yasmin related she then jumped out of the minivan and heard him gasping and trying to breathe. And he called out to her, I can't breathe, I need to go to the hospital.
She, despite hearing this, continues to walk away. And a moment later, she states that he got behind the wheel and drove off.
Yasmin related that she walked for a little while and then got onto a bus and went back to her neighborhood.
After all the questioning during the interrogation, it never came across to me that Yasmin was fearful for her life. It almost seemed like she was in control of this fight the entire time and could put an end to it anytime she wanted to. Not once during the interrogation did she ever say she was fighting in self-defense. She said, he started hitting me, and I fought back, and I was winning.
She, in fact, was proud of the fact that she had won the fight.
In Chicago PD's Area South Detective Division, Yasmin Elder has just admitted that she was in a physical fight with her fiancé the night he died.
Yasmin stated as the fight went on that Darius grabbed a plastic bottle containing bleach and he went to hit her with it. She stated she was able to obtain this bottle somehow, at which time she used it to pour into his mouth.
Yasmin claims the fight came after suffering abuse at Darius's hands in the weeks and minutes before the fight.
Police asked Yasmin about any injuries that she might have received. She told police that she had gotten bleach in her eyes, that Darius had bit her on her hand, and that he had punched her in her thighs, as well as had hit her in the back of the head.
After speaking with Yasmin and the statement she made about receiving injuries from Darius, we photographed various parts of her body, and none of the photographs revealed any type of injury. There was one bruise on her thigh, and we also noticed a red mark on her hand that we believed was a burn from a caustic substance.
There are no bite marks on her body. There are no obvious signs of a struggle. There's nothing around her eyes to substantiate these claims.
Nor is there any proof that Darius ever laid a hand on her.
We didn't see anything that would indicate that happened. And why hadn't she ever made a police report before? Why hadn't she told anyone else before?
But the most powerful moment in the interview with Yasmin comes when detectives present her with the flip phone Darius held up in his final dying moments.
When presented with the evidence of the flip phone, Yasmin agreed that it was indeed her phone. Darius, in essence, solved his own murder.
Investigators now believe that Darius's initial claim he was attacked by two men was an attempt to save Yasmin.
When he thinks he's going to survive, he wants help, but he's not going to tell him that it was his fiancée, Yasmin. So he says there was two black guys who held me down. He didn't think he was going to die. He just wanted help. He didn't want her locked up.
But then Darius realized his situation was more serious than he thought.
They didn't want to get her in trouble at first, but as he's dying and he realizes he's dying, he then tells the truth. The state's attorney's office interviewed witnesses and reviewed reports and all the evidence, and on May 7th, 2017, charged Yasmin Elder with 1 count of first-degree murder.
First-degree murder charges in Illinois carry a minimum of 20 years in prison up to 60 years in prison. First-degree murder requires intent.
Yasmin's bail is set at $1 million.
I do recall my brother letting me know. He did make us all aware that she was in custody.
Darius's family is stunned by the truth and by Yasmin's claims that she and Darius were engaged.
If they were planning to be married, one of us would have known. Darius is close to his siblings. Me, my brothers, we all spoke frequently on the phone. Whether we seen each other or not, we talked. We were very close. So if he was planning any type of engagement or proposing to someone, I definitely feel like we would have known. You say that you guys are engaged and you were shopping for a wedding dress and all of these great things. Why would you want to poison someone that you love?
On February 13th, 2020, Yasmin pleads guilty to second-degree murder.
The negotiation between her lawyer and the prosecutors in this case resulted in a plea agreement of 15 years, which was 5 years below the maximum sentence that could be had in second degree.
We held up our end of the bargain as the Chicago Police Department. We did a thorough investigation. We put the facts together, and we put a person in prison who committed the murder.
When Yasmin ran into Darius's friend, what she told the friend was that Darius should not have put his hands on me, that what happened to him was payback for what he had in fact done to her.
I think that her response of he shouldn't have put his hands on me was a person that is trying to justify something that they did. Like, no one has proof of Darius ever putting his hands. She didn't have any markings on her body. She didn't have any bruises, any of those things. This is a strong man. If he's putting his hands on you, you will have something to show for it. You had none of that. So at that point, I think that it was her way of just giving people a reason. Oh, this is why I did it. So it could be justified maybe as payback. This is why I did it. But I really feel like it's not payback from him abusing her. I think it's payback from him denying her and her being jealous of what he had going on.
Not once did I ever feel that she felt guilty about what happened.
But for the people who love Darius, the justice is short-lived.
Yasmin Elder received time credit for serving 31 months prior to her trial and was released on parole in May 2024.
She should have not only served 6.5 years. She killed my brother in cold blood.
In spite of Yasmin's release, the Ellis family continues to honor Darius's memory.
You lose a lot when you lose someone, and the Inglewood community, Darius's family, they all lost a great human being.
He embodied love. So I just know he would have been great. He would have been the amazing person he always was.
Darius was only 26 years old. Imagine when you were 26, you got a whole life left to live. And he also leaves behind a fatherless 5-year-old.
He was so determined. He was passionate about the things he was good at. And I think he would be an exceptional father. And I'm still making sure I keep his name alive. And I plan to do even more in the future. I'm just gonna keep going, like we were always taught. Never give up.
Maurice was so put together. Like he was very debonair and suave. Knew how to speak, knew how to smile, knew how to stay reserved. My mom called me and she said, your Uncle Maurice was killed. And I said, what?
We entered the residence at that point, and both of us could smell an odor of decay.
I started shining my flashlight around in the room, and that's when I seen blood.
She's developed this fixation with him.
It was kind of like we came into each other's lives at that time for a reason.
She thought because of her age and the way she looked that we wouldn't have suspected.
She just lied and lied and lied.
The dream wasn't going to come to fruition. She wanted payback.
Guthrie, Oklahoma is just over 32 miles north of the state capital of Oklahoma City.
You don't really hear about a lot of violent crime in a place like Guthrie. It's like a lot of towns in Oklahoma, more of a kind of smaller, tight-knit community.
On the afternoon of Saturday, December 10th, 2011, officers on patrol with the Guthrie Police Department receive a request for a welfare check on 60-year-old resident Maurice Byrd.
Maurice used to live across from the police department, and I used to, every now and then, go out there and say, hey, what's up, Maurice? Dispatch calls and says that Maurice's ex-wife wants to talk to me on the telephone. Dispatch passed me through to her, and she said that Maurice was supposed to be in Kansas City with the rest of his family to make some decisions about his mother. She said something's wrong because Maurice was supposed to be in here last night. She said he wouldn't miss this. I go to the house, knock on the door, nobody answered the door. So I walked completely around the house, didn't really see anything, and I went back around, knocked on the door again.
He tried the doorknob, which the front door was unlocked. At that point, Officer Williams, he called me and asked for my assistance so we can go check this residence. So we went to the front door, opened it up, announced ourselves that we were the Guthrie Police Department.
They get no reply.
We entered the residence at that point, and both of us could smell an odor of decay. We went through the kitchen, and there was a chair that was knocked over. I observed some droplets of blood that was there on the floor.
The officers cautiously follow a trail of blood to the bedroom.
I took my flashlight, started shining my flashlight around in the room, and that's when I seen Maurice Byrd laying on the floor on the left side of the bed, and I could see blood. It was obvious he was deceased.
I could see that he had been deceased for a little while just due to the discoloration in his skin, and also notice a pool of blood under the side of his head.
The officers can't tell how Maurice died, but there are enough red flags to call it suspicious.
You have one chair that's overturned, and then a little bit of blood splatter that's on the ground, and then Maurice is found by the bed. It appeared that there was a little bit of a struggle.
I stepped back outside of the residence and made contact with my chief of police at the time. He said, go ahead and call our investigations unit, and OSBI was also notified.
I couldn't think of a reason why somebody would do anything to Maurice, because as far as I knew, he was a good dude. He was a good guy. It was kind of puzzling.
Frances Maurice Byrd was born in 1951 and raised in Kansas.
We had a really big family, and my grandma and her sister raised us like within blocks of each other. Granny had a house on the corner, and Aunt Wanda had a house down the street. And my Uncle Maurice was Aunt Wanda's son. We were all always at the other's house. And, you know, no knocks on doors, in and out, you know. Everybody knew everybody's business, obviously. And, you know, we just all loved each other.
Like the rest of his family, Maurice graduated from Independence High School, and then he went on to pursue a degree in business, which he obtained in college.
Maurice was so put together. Like, he was very, like, debonair and suave and, like, attractive and, like, smooth. Very professional, very eloquent, knew how to speak, knew how to smile, knew how to stay reserved. He wasn't, like, confrontational or aggressive, but he was very commanding of his space.
In 1976, Maurice got married and started a family.
He and his wife went on to have 2 beautiful children and basically the American dream, a nice home, a nice family, everything that he really could have asked for. Maurice was a building contractor. He was good at what he did, and he was committed to doing the best job that he could.
After the kids left home and over 35 years of marriage, Maurice and his wife divorced.
He was still very involved in his family's lives, his siblings, his kids. He even kept up a relationship with his ex-wife. He was really looking for a fresh start and a place that he could really thrive with his real estate company, commercial and residential. And Guthrie was seen as a place that was still on the up and up, still with room to grow.
At this time in his life, he moved to Guthrie as kind of a restart.
He was very active in the community. He was a counselor for at-risk youth and the director of a nonprofit organization in the community.
He wanted to give back. He was gonna open some houses for at-risk people trying to transition back into society. He wasn't judgmental. He knew that we all had a past and that we can either take our past and use it as building blocks and become successes, or we could be stuck in our past. And he was all about giving people second chances. As suave as he was, as debonair as he was, as successful as he was, the most important thing was getting these people off the streets and giving people a chance to do better.
But Maurice will never see his dream come true. He lies dead in his bedroom in a pool of blood. Agents with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation arrive at his Guthrie home.
When we entered the bedroom, we could tell that Mr. Byrd had been shot. We didn't find any casings, and there was not a gun there. That pretty much gives you a good indicator that wasn't suicide, that someone had killed him.
Someone shot him 4 times in the back. Whoever did this wanted to make sure he was dead.
First and foremost, there weren't any signs of forced entry to the residence. And that can tell you a couple of things. One is that Maurice had opened the door and maybe somebody had surprised him. However, there was no signs of struggle at the doorway. There was no marks on the door. meaning that it didn't appear that entry was made forcibly into the residence, so the possibility emerged that Maurice knew the killer.
Does that mean they were friends? Does that mean that you open the door and somebody's got a gun in your face?
The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation is in Guthrie, where 60-year-old Maurice Byrd has been found inside his home with 4 gunshot wounds to the back.
There wasn't any forced entry to the house. It didn't show that it was a burglary. We didn't discover anything from the residence that was stolen.
There is one possible exception.
We knew that Maurice had a vehicle, but no vehicle was currently at the residence. So initially it was thought that whoever had killed Maurice had actually taken his car as well.
Inside, investigators try to piece together what happened.
You could see a turned over chair in the kitchen, and we could see a drop of blood.
Investigators theorize Maurice was first shot in the kitchen.
It appeared that he ran away and he was shot again in the bedroom and was found face down.
That's where you start to think, was he trying to seek safety? Was he trying to get to a weapon of his own? His handgun was next to the bed inside a drawer. And you start to think that maybe he was trying to get something to defend himself with.
There wasn't any shell casings. Sometimes that could indicate that someone picked them up. It could also indicate that it was a revolver versus a handgun, a semi-automatic.
There is something else in the bedroom that stands out.
Processing the bedroom where Mr. Byrd's body was, there were several gift cards that was laying on the dresser.
The cards are worth thousands of dollars.
There's nothing criminal about it. It just seems strange.
Investigators contact Maurice's family.
In this case, everyone was out of state, and exigency actually required us to notify at least one of the family members first via telephone. It's somewhat uncommon, but we needed to get that out there and see what it is that the family knew. So the first call was to Maurice's ex-wife. Although suspecting something bad, of course, it was still shocking to her to learn that Maurice had passed, especially that it wasn't natural causes.
I just can't imagine anybody having anything bad to say about him.
Well, the first thing you'd want to do is figure out who's the last person that contacted him.
She begins to establish a timeline. She hadn't spoken to him since around the 5th or the 6th.
In calls to his brother and daughter, they say the same thing.
No one has actually spoken with him after the 6th, so about 5 days since he was located.
Then we shifted into a mode of walking around to the neighbors, asking them if they heard any gunshots. When was the last time they'd seen Maurice? Everybody that I spoke to had not seen him within a 2-day period.
Between December 7th and December 10th is probably when he was murdered, because they didn't hear from him from that time period.
Detectives learned that Maurice's car was not stolen.
Neighbor number 2 that I spoke with, he had known quite a bit, but the last time that he had talked with Maurice was a few weeks earlier, just before Thanksgiving. He said that Maurice had a gray sedan, and it was currently being worked on by a mechanic.
We would also be looking at who has surveillance video and go from that point.
was learned that there was a camera that was on a church that actually was just to the south of this property, and it got a good portion of the street out in front of Maurice's house.
Knowing that Maurice's car has been in the shop for weeks, detectives look to see if any other vehicles have been to his house in the days since his family last heard from him.
Now, there was one timestamp that the police found interesting. It was marked for December 7th at 7:18 p.m.
And on that camera footage, you see a sedan, medium to light colored, pull up, and out comes a lady. She goes into the house, spends a certain amount of time in there, comes out of the house and leaves in the sedan.
A white elderly woman with white hair got out and went inside. She was inside for about 5 minutes, and then she gets back into her car and drives away.
Her visit comes after Maurice's family and neighbors last heard from him. Whoever she is, she could be the key to solving the case.
They need to talk to her because there's questions. Did you know something? Were you just coming to visit Maurice? Did you see something?
My mom called me and she said, your Uncle Maurice was killed. And I said, what? And she goes, your Uncle Maurice was killed. And it was just devastating. And I said, what happened? And she goes, well, we're not sure. Death is devastating, but he was murdered in his home and he was shot in his back. You know, he was murdered. The loss of my uncle was very devastating to my family because we loved him so much, and he was such a great example of love, of kindness, of compassion, of community service.
Investigators in Guthrie, Oklahoma, are reviewing surveillance footage that shows an elderly woman in a gold sedan entering the home of Maurice Byrd after he was last heard from by family and neighbors.
You couldn't really identify the person that got out of the car that walked to the house because it's dark.
Investigators keep watching. 20 minutes after her first visit, a second camera picks up the vehicle again.
Both cameras are picking up this same gold sedan, which seems to be going back and forth in the neighborhood. It just seems strange.
That vehicle had been circling around that house a couple of times.
Eventually, she parks, this time in an alley adjacent to the church.
Again, you see this same gold sedan on this footage, and you see the same elderly white woman with white hair get out and go into Maurice's home. But this time, she doesn't leave for an hour.
Investigators move quickly to try and identify the woman.
You can't see the license plate, and you can't really identify the person in it. It just looks like an older lady.
That information was forwarded to me to be able to determine the type of vehicle. And we were able to determine the make and model of that car, even a year range.
Police turn to the residents of Guthrie for help.
At this point, the police have done all they can, and they're going to need help from the media. Journalists have the ability to reach out to communities, to gather responses and trust in a way that sometimes police can't do. We put the information out there in hopes that someone will be able to recognize the vehicle, recognize the woman in the footage.
But days pass without any leads.
No one was able to identify her, and it was almost like she was just a ghost.
On December 17, 2011. 10 days after Maurice's murder, Guthrie police receive a phone call from one of his family members. According to the relative, something upsetting occurred at Maurice's funeral earlier that day.
The family gets to the funeral. You know, they're in the process of mourning Maurice, spending time with their loved ones, and this woman shows up. And instead of, asking the family if there's anything that she can do for them, expressing her condolences, she's asking for money that she believes Maurice owes her.
She makes a request to the family and says, Maurice owes me money. And it wasn't just $5, $20. It was $20,000. And she starts asking questions about when his estate was going to be divvied up and just all kinds of inappropriate questions.
She literally started going into how Uncle Maurice owed her money and that she had belongings in his apartment that belonged to her, and she wanted those things. And she wanted to see about any insurance or anything because she was owed.
The family member goes on to say that the woman isn't a stranger. She is 65-year-old Beverly McComb.
She actually used to date Maurice's cousin, so they had seen her around before, but Maurice's cousin had since passed away.
We didn't really get along, but her and my dad weren't together for very long.
So for her to be here requesting money at a funeral, what relationship do you now have with Maurice that entitled you to come and ask something like this? It was weird, so the family said, you know what, we're calling the police.
Mrs. McComb was asking for money, wanting the family members that was his children to pay back some money that he owed her. Well, that's obviously very suspicious.
Investigators immediately take a look at Beverly McComb.
Investigators look into her vehicle to see what she owns, and what they find is that she's the owner of a gold sedan, the same gold sedan that was seen at the church surveillance footage.
Investigators also learned that Beverly lives 250 miles away in Forney, Texas.
On December 20th, OSBI, in cooperation with the Texas Rangers, applied for a warrant to search this woman's home in Forney, Texas.
At the same time, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation agents traveled to Forney to question Beverly.
You know, this is a 65-year-old woman, quiet home in the suburbs. What is the link? What is the reason that she would have to travel from Texas to Oklahoma? How were Maurice Byrd and Beverly McComb connected?
This is about Maurice Byrd. And how do you know Maurice?
Agents with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation are in Forney, Texas, questioning 65-year-old Beverly McComb about the shooting death of Guthrie resident Maurice Byrd.
So police started interviewing Beverly, and she was very calm in her demeanor. She was compliant, answering questions.
All right. How do you know Maurice?
I went with his cousin, like I said, back in '87. I met him then, and then just over the years, we were around each other.
Okay. Who's Maurice's cousin?
Tommy Anderson, and he's deceased. That's how I reconnected with Maurice.
Her relationship with his cousin didn't go well, and they broke up. And then when they broke up and she kind of never really found anybody to be with, Then she went online trying to see if she could find Tommy, and then discovered that Tommy had passed away. So then she reached out to Maurice and then was able to reconnect with him.
Beverly felt an instant connection and a closeness to Maurice because he was related to Tommy.
So what type of relationship did you and Maurice end up having? Were you guys boyfriend, girlfriend?
No. We were very good friends. He had the philosophy that that things are kind of, predestined. He was very spiritual.
Beverly says that Maurice inspired her to make a fresh start in Guthrie, just as he had done after his divorce.
He was gonna help me move. I was trying to find a job.
She shared her problems with Maurice, and he shared his with her.
He said that, he kind of told me beforehand about how he was kind of living sparsely, I guess you would say. And he said that someone that owed him money hadn't paid him. I thought, well, I've still got some. Maybe, I could get a little bit of money to help him.
Did you get cash and give it to him out of that, or did you transfer it?
I transferred it. I got, it's like some kind of a money card.
When we were processing the crime scene in the bedroom, I remember seeing some gift cards laying on the dresser. That was how she was paying him money.
If you had to guess at a total dollar amount that you gave him over the past 3 months.
I think it came out to $17,000 and something.
She stated that she had given Maurice $17,000 to $20,000 over a span of 3 months.
But Beverly insists she was okay with that.
Was he using you?
I don't think so.
Don't think so?
No. He fully intended to pay me back.
Beverly admits to investigators she was in the Guthrie area the week Maurice was killed.
When was the last time you saw him?
Oh, I think it was a few days before this happened.
Before he died?
Mm-hmm.
But investigators tell Beverly they know exactly which day she was there.
Okay. There's several cameras on this building.
Okay.
With different views.
They present Beverly with footage that shows her entering Maurice's home the first time on December 7th.
That's the day he died.
That day?
Did you ever see him again after that?
No.
But investigators tell her the footage shows her going back 20 minutes later.
You went back to the house that night. Tell me what happened when you went back to the house that night.
So now she has no choice but to reveal, yes, I was there.
Beverly offers an explanation.
She tells them a story of Maurice encouraging her to, obtain a gun to protect herself. She's an elderly woman living alone, and that, according to her, Maurice took her to get the gun. She tells investigators that she went with Maurice to a shooting range, but they know she's lying.
The worst thing that you can do is lie to me.
They press Beverly for the truth, but they are unprepared for what she says next.
You didn't go there with the intent to kill him, did you?
I didn't go by myself.
then slowly, with hesitation, admitted that somebody else was with her that night.
Presented with surveillance footage, Beverly McComb admits she did return to Maurice Byrd's home on the afternoon he was shot and killed. But Beverly says she didn't go alone.
Who is he?
You know, I don't know his last name.
What's
That's
his
terrible.
first name?
Max.
Is he your boyfriend?
He's just someone that I had met
How did you meet him?
in Guthrie.
She seen him walking down the street and just decided to pick him up. They went to a motel and they had sex.
And then they had a rendezvous at the hotel for several days.
During their tryst, Beverly confided in Max about the money she'd loaned Maurice.
And he's a nice person. And he felt sorry for me, but I mean, he felt more like that I'd been, taken advantage of.
Max, he told her, you need to stand up for yourself and you need to get your money back.
On December 7th, she says they went to Maurice's home together. They took her gun, at Max's suggestion.
He thought that we should take it in. And I tried to talk him out of it.
To scare him?
Yeah. Then Maurice opened the door, and I started in, and then Max came behind me and came in. And then he and Max, they were hollering back and forth at each other, and I went in to use the bathroom. And it seemed like that it was escalating.
While she was in the bathroom listening to the conflict, she heard Maurice say, "Oh, you've got your gun. I've got mine too." And that's when she heard the gunshots go off.
And after that, she's so scared and terrified that she runs out of the house.
Beverly told police that when they left the home, Max left on foot and she left in her vehicle, which is why you wouldn't see him get in her vehicle on the surveillance camera.
Okay, I mean, you're being honest with me about that. Is he the one that shot Maurice? Or did you do it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, Max did. And you're being 100% honest with me.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I have to check all of this out.
She doesn't know his last name, but she does have his phone number written down on a piece of paper at her house.
Beverly tells them they will find the gun there as well.
He gave you the gun back?
Yeah.
Where's it at your house?
It's on a shelf in my closet.
Then Beverly puts a sudden end to the questioning.
Maybe I do need a representative.
At Beverly's house, the search is already underway.
Police found a piece of paper with Max's number on it.
They also find the gun, just where Beverly said it would be.
Police find a .38 revolver in her house.
And, you know, it's the same type of gun that was used in Maurice's murder, and the number of bullets missing matched the amount of shots to Maurice's body.
So at this point, she has said that Max has shot Maurice, and police are now at the point where they have to do their due diligence.
They trace the phone number and come up with a name Guthrie police are familiar with.
Max was just a guy that everybody knew that, you know, just hung around town and did what he did. And I found Max at one of the stores here in town and told him I need you to come to the police department.
Oklahoma investigators have picked up the man Beverly McComb claims shot and killed Maurice Byrd at his home. Guthrie police question him.
They present Beverly's name to him and says, hey, tell me about your relationship with this woman. Max goes on to say that what Beverly said was an embellishment of the truth. That Max was walking down the street one day, confronted by an older woman who was asking basically for sexual relations. Max agreed. They went back to her motel. They did what they did, but that was the extent of the relationship.
Max explained that he was not guilty and he had nothing to do with Maurice's murder.
Max offers an alibi.
He was at a convenience store at the time of the murder.
So I went to the store, pulled the video, and there's Max on video cashing the check. So at that point, we knew Max didn't do anything.
That only left one person, Beverly McComb.
On December 22nd, 2011, police arrested Beverly in her Texas home for the murder of Maurice Byrd.
Beverly maintains her innocence. In early 2013, prosecutors prepare for trial. They believe Beverly developed strong feelings for Maurice after they started talking online.
It's almost as if she's developed this fixation, this obsession with him.
But the tides turned when she loaned him thousands of dollars.
Apparently he wasn't paying it back quick enough for what she liked.
She decided to take matters in her own hands. She purchased a gun, drove from Texas to Guthrie.
Prosecutors say that Beverly approached Maurice at his home demanding he pay her back the $20,000 in loans. Either he refused or he didn't have it, but he gave her an answer she didn't like.
They're arguing and he's not giving her her money back, and she just got angrier and angrier. Beverly was just hurt. She wanted revenge. She was angry. So she shot Mr. Byrd and killed him.
When Beverly realized that the dream that she believed that she saw in Maurice wasn't going to come to fruition, it wouldn't come into reality, she got angry and she wanted payback.
Facing life in prison, Beverly starts having second thoughts.
Now, in March 2013, Beverly's attorney files a motion to change her plea in order to strike a deal where if she admits guilt, she'll be given a more lenient sentence. The judge ultimately sentences her to 40 years in prison with 30 years suspended as long as she maintains good behavior.
Maurice's family is outraged.
Is it a deal just for women, or is it a deal just for white people? What kind of deal is it? And can we call it what it is? It's just not right.
She didn't even serve the full 10 years before being released. You know, we have cases in Oklahoma of people who were sentenced to life in prison for simply being at the scene of a crime when they were 18, sometimes 17 years old. And you have this elderly white woman who thinks about what she's going to do. It's a premeditated act. She goes and murders someone, lies to police about it, and then even after she gets caught, she's given a lenient sentence.
It's all a travesty. Nobody's satisfied. My family is not satisfied. Justice was not served. She did not pay for her crime. Is there a world where he would have taken $20,000 for her and not given her money back? Absolutely not. There is no history of my uncle running off with people's money. None whatsoever. He had no reason to not pay her back. He wasn't a thief, he wasn't a crook.